Welcome back to the channel and welcome to week 9 of the Road to Valencia Marathon. So we've just 1 week to go now until the race. Find out what I've been doing this week in training to give myself the best possible chance of getting a sub 3 on the day. So now I'm at the period which you hear very often when people are training for marathons and any races, to be honest, the taper period. So I'll just briefly explain the theory behind this and then what it means to me, what my taper period is going to look like, because it's different for everyone else and depending on your own experience. So the theory states that your taper period is a period where you're reducing that training load, so where you've been building up your fitness over the course of your marathon training, whatever training you've been doing, and then getting closer to the race. We don't want to go into that race all fatigued, so a few weeks out from the race, could even be the week of the race, what runners will typically do is to reduce that training load so that the fitness stays there. If we imagine it on a graph, but you're going to be very fit and near the top of 100% of your fitness when you've been doing all this training, but the freshness might not necessarily be there, and that's what we want to bring back up to. Again, we want the freshness to be near 100% when we go into a marathon. So it's a bit of a trade-off really, that we reduce the running volume slightly, may have a slight dip or sort of leveling effect on your fitness, but that increased freshness will help us on race day. And this all stems from a theory and a method of training that's called periodised training. So when you're training for a long-term goal or a bigger goal, you can break it up into a longer term cycle to focus on specific things at specific times and get them in the right order to give you the best chance to go in that race day at your peak performance. So typically it would start with a base building phase, and you don't really want to put a time limit on this. It could be a few weeks, it could be a few years if you're that patient, all but building that base up through easy mileage, getting your body used to handling that mileage, getting strong, doing some gym work. That's often the first phase in that periodization cycle, and then we'll move on to the second phase, which is a build phase. So the build phase, you've got enough of a base behind you, and in the build phase you want to be looking at increasing your mileage safely, but also looking at putting some sessions in there, so something that's going to stress your body and pull up from the sort of top end of your threshold to make you go quicker. So these are things like interval sessions, hill sessions, explosive work that will get you quicker, and blend that into your whole training week in the build phase. And then after we've come out of the build phase, you've then got more of a race specific sort of specialist phase where you're looking at what are going to be the key workouts to your event. So if you're training for 5k, 10k, maybe track running shorter than 5k, you're going to do a lot more of these shorter intervals, harder efforts, explosive efforts. But if you're training for half marathon and marathon, you're going to be doing more sort of tempo runs, you're going to be doing longer intervals, you're perhaps going to have more jog recoveries between rather than static recoveries in your interval sessions. So it's really focusing on what's specific to the event that you're going to do in the next month or so. So in terms of what I like to do in the taper phase, and on an ideal day, really ideal situation if everything's gone right, is to focus on keeping the same routine really that I've had throughout my training. I want to keep the same sessions in there, the same frequency of training, but all I want to do is try and decrease that volume slightly. So naturally, I think the common one that most people know is for the long run to get shorter from about 3 or 4 weeks out as you get closer to the marathon. The other one is to decrease the volume within your sessions. So I'm thinking about sessions where I've done perhaps a 10 by 3 minutes session, which is quite a long session for me. Going into taper week of the marathon, probably reduce this to something like a 6 for 3 minutes and less than 20 minutes of volume. But what I want to do in there is to still run at the same paces, still run at that same intensity. I don't want to just slow things down just because I'm going into the marathon, because I think that can have a negative effect, that you just become like you're going through the motions a little bit, and then it makes it hard on race day to then pick back up to even marathon pace, which the marathon pace should be really comfortable. So if you drop in your sort of shorter interval sessions to run at marathon pace or slower, then it's probably not the best thing to do. And I'd also look at the total mileage of what I'm doing. So again, total mileage is a bit of a can be misleading at times, because if you're doing all your total mileage easy running, it's not really going to have as much of an impact on you as if you're doing maybe 30 or 40% of this at a higher intensity. So just one to watch out for there. But I'd look at the average mileage of my whole block, and it's been around 50 to 60 miles most weeks. Been a bit below sometimes, a bit above at times. So what I want to do is reduce from this. So I'm looking at possibly doing around 40 to 50 miles this week, and then going into race week I'll probably only be looking at doing about 15 to 20 miles. But again, if I'm trying to keep that intensity in, trying to keep the same frequency and running each day, it's really getting down to like 4 or 5 miles at a time running to get that kind of volume. So I might be slightly higher, but this isn't an issue. I'll still be going into the marathon feeling pretty fresh. So the key takeaways there for the taper are to keep that same routine, the same frequency of your runs, possibly have another rest day or two if you find that it doesn't impact on you, to keep that same intensity in the sessions, but obviously reduce that volume, and it's just reduce the overall volume of your running. So we have that effect where our fitness still stays pretty high, but the freshness comes back up to catch up with it, which will give you an extra boost on race day to how you're feeling in the last sort of 2 or 3 weeks going into a marathon. So to my training this week, and I've took advice from my wrongdoings last week in pushing it a bit harder and going on the bike, meaning that I ended up missing some runs, and I've just kept it pretty easy so far. So I know I didn't run on Sunday, so you'd think that I'd feel fresh and ready to go, but that sort of flu cold kind of thing has lingered over for the last couple of days, and I've just took Monday and Tuesday pretty easy. So did an easy hour with Andy on Monday, I did an easy hour with Emma on Tuesday. So I would typically try and get into a session on Tuesday, but I don't want to have a repeat of last week and push it too early and impact on the rest of the week. So I'm glad I did that, because I had a really good session on Wednesday night on the treadmill. So just a bit of a confidence booster one really, that last time I'd done a treadmill session I really struggled at doing 6 by a K and couldn't hit like 6:15 pace even really. So I opted to do 3-minute reps, and I was going to do at least 6 but up to 10 if I felt good. So I started off these at just over 6-minute mile, and it felt really comfortable. I felt a lot better this week. So through the first 6, no problem. I then on the last few, so from about the last 3 I think it was, I started increasing the speed slightly. So I didn't end up finishing the last couple of reps at about 5:50 per mile pace. So I've averaged 10 lots of 3 minutes at 6-minute miles, which is the best paced session I've really done on the whole block, and gives me good confidence that if running that for 3 minutes feels pretty comfortable, then running for 6:45 is a big difference in a marathon, so it's given me a lot of confidence going into that. And unsurprisingly, after that session I felt a little bit sore today, so today is a 5-mile recovery run, and then I'll be coaching tonight with my club session. So yeah, only about a mile there, just sort of joining the warm-up and cool down, so no more running for me. I've got a park run planned on Saturday, so I like to go out and I can run at that sub 20 pace, which is 6:25 per mile. Give that a go. If I'm slightly over, it doesn't matter. If I'm under, great. But I've just had a good short workout, a little bit of tempo. It's slightly quicker than marathon pace. It's just nice to go and see people at parkrun too. Nice to go down with Emma and Lola, and I enjoy going around with GoPro, to be honest. I'm running with them too, so that's the plan. I'll be having a long run on Sunday, so long run this week is a lot shorter than previous weeks. It's probably going to be somewhere between 13 and 15 miles with a little bit of marathon pace work in there.
So here we are at the start of Coronation Park parkrun, which is my local parkrun, just a 4 or 5 minute jog away, so quite handy to have this on my doorstep. So the first section starts with a little bit of uphill before we then take a left into the inside section of the park. So this can be a little bit congested going into this first section. A few puddles there as it wasn't the best of weather today, but it soon does thin out as it's not really a well-populated parkrun. We're under 100 people most weeks, so especially this week where there's a few less. So you'll notice that I've swapped over to Lola, which she really helped me, pull me along in the first mile or so. She worked really well, and I got a first mile of 6:18 with Lola's help, so she was going well here. Going into the first sort of dogleg section there, so we're about a mile in now. You can just see Emma coming past the other way with the leaders, and we round the cone and then start to head back onto the other side. My instruction wasn't too clear to Lola there, she was just going to carry on, and then we head back onto the park. Down the hill, this is quite a nice section here, you can see everyone coming up the hill on the way back, and then we go on to the more familiar 2 loops of the park run. So Emma did decide that she was on for a first place finish. She was challenging for that, so she swapped and let me have Lola so that she could concentrate on the running. So we'll see how she gets on later on in the video. So yeah, quite a few puddles here. We are going into the section now on the second lap and starting to fade a little bit here. So that first mile where Lola had her mum in sight, she was pulling along, did help push me along slightly. So in the next couple of miles, she wasn't quite as motivated to pull me along, but this more reflected my actual effort. So my actual effort today was more like a 6:30, 6:40 per mile pace, rather than the 6:18 in the first mile.
Stay left, darling, stay left.
So just telling Lola to stay left here as we're going into the finish. And there you can see her mum in the background. And we finish in a time of 20:30ish.
Do you want to?
Yeah. Oh, you're so wet.
I took a rest day on Friday, and then before parkrun on Saturday did my local Coronation Park parkrun, as you can see on the clips there. So the first mile I had Lola sort of pulling me along a little bit as she was chasing after, trying to get in front and see her mum, Emma, who was just in front. But as she disappeared into the distance a little bit further, the next 2 miles were a little bit more of a challenge for me, so I was using more of my own steam. So that 6:25 soon dropped to about 6:40s by the end, which is still up on marathon pace, still what I wanted to do, but not quite at that 20-minute mark that I should be able to reach really for a park run. So that was it on Saturday. So second session of a week really on Saturday by doing 5k tempo there, and then going into Sunday had my long run. So I got to about 9 miles of my long run. I planned to do a little bit of marathon pace effort in there, but unfortunately I had to cut it a little bit short, not due to injury or anything, I'm all okay, but just had to cut it short. So 9 miles in the bag for my last long run. I've not really felt that I had to go out and do that extra 3 or 4 miles that I wanted to get in there at marathon pace. Really just want to rest up and make myself as fresh as possible going into taper week and going into next Sunday. So looking at the whole week, I've done 2 sessions, one really good one, that treadmill session where I did 10 by 3 minutes. We're hitting some really good paces there at 6-minute miles and below for some of the latter reps. So that's really given me the confidence that running at 640s, 650s per mile that I want to do to get a sub 3 in the marathon is going to feel quite comfortable. And if I can get it feeling comfortable to halfway, get it feeling comfortable to say 15 to 17, 18 and to 20 miles, and just take it from there and see how it goes. I feel that I'm in a good level of fitness really. I've banked enough 20-mile long runs and enough running around that 640 pace or below throughout my week that I'm in good shape really going into Valencia in a week's time. So my total mileage this week came to 42 miles, which was a slight increase on last week, but purely because I missed my long run on last week. And I'd said before that I want to do something in the range of 40 to 50 miles as I'm tapering back down and up in that freshness ready for Valencia Marathon. So I will be back next week. It's obviously race week next week, so I'm hoping to get out a bit of a race week and preview of the marathon before the marathon, if I take my laptop with me, but if not, it will all be included in the race week video. So hopefully 2 videos in the next sort of week and a half or 2, but if not, we'll have a full video that captures my run up to race week and the Valencia Marathon. So stay tuned for that, and I'll see you in next week's video.